My guest tonight is the poetry editor at The New Yorker and director of the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture and author of a new book of poetry called Brown. Please welcome Kevin Young. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
A beautiful book of poems with a title that says so much, Brown. Why the title Brown?
I was thinking of all kinds of brownness. James Brownness, John Brown, also Linda Brown of Brown v. Board,
Right.
who played piano in my church in Topeka, Kansas growing up. So.
Oh, wow.
So she was, right there, and I learned at an early age that history, she was part of the case that changed our whole nation and,
Right.
Desegregated our schools and so much more. And there was history right in front of me singing. So she was a beautiful singer and a beautiful person.
Right. It's a name that many people have in America, a name that many people adopted, a name that many people were given. But in many ways, brown in America signifies so much. Brown can determine what kind of job a person gets. Brown can determine what schools you go to. Brown can determine what type of loans you can get. Is that why Brown was so important for you when writing about, I guess, black culture and the black experience in this book of poems?
Yeah, absolutely. It had many resonances. I just love the word, of course, but also I thought a lot about, how can I go from Prince to the personal,
Right.
Which is what I get into in the book. And I was thinking a lot about history. I'm obsessed with the music of history and the history of music, and both those things came together in that book and in that word.
Right. When you write your poems, I mean, like, some poems are extremely, extremely short, and then others span pages. Does this just come to you, like, where you go, like, oh no, this is 2 lines and then I'm done, or do you quit, or are you thinking about it from the beginning? Like, how do you plan the poem? Because there's one poem here. It was my favorite one. It was an ode to Big Pun. And it was basically just 2 lines.
Yeah, Ode to Big Pun. I mean, he has that great song, Not a Player.
Right.
I'm not a player, I just crush a lot. And so I was thinking about it, and I just decided to say, I'm not a prayer, I just wish a lot.
Right.
So that's my Ode to Big Pun.
Right, and if you love Big Pun...
And it's also pun, it's a pun, so.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to be so... Am I being too obvious?
You have poems like that. You also wrote a poem entitled Money Road, which centers around Emmett Till.
Yeah.
And, the Emmett Till story took an interesting twist. I mean, not a twist for some, but for others, where the woman who was the reason he got into trouble came out and said, hey, I lied. She said on her deathbed, I lied. He did not do anything. You wrote a poem in this book before that happened. And in the poem you said, did he whistle? You said whistled or smiled or did nothing. Was that just prophetic, or was it something that you always believed? Was it something that is tied into brownness as a whole, just the idea of being falsely accused?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's part of brownness. I mean, I'm shocked that we realized that obviously lynching was terrible, and he was lynched supposedly for saying something.
Right.
But why did we even believe this little part of the story? I think it comes up in Starbucks. They had to do something wrong. It's hard for us to believe that racism could be full of blame, and the person receiving the brunt of it could have no blame.
Right. Well, as someone who studies black culture, a lot of people are confused by what that means.
Sure.
Like, what is black culture? Does it have a culture unto itself, or is it culture that comes from African, Caribbean,
Sure.
etc.?
Well, race is a fiction, but racism isn't. So there's that.
Right.
But then there's also blackness comes from African culture, the mix of Caribbean culture. What I love about the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture is we study global black culture and experience.
Right.
We've been in Harlem for 93 years, and we were part of the first Harlem Renaissance, and we're thinking about the new Renaissance that's happening now in film and poetry and art. And to be able to think about it holistically, that's how I think about culture.
When you look at Kanye West now, is that a part of black culture? How does that qualify?
I mean,
I'm saying as an expert in this.
Until last week he was, but now. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean, I think we have a big tent. I mean, that's what's really interesting. There is this big tradition of black conservatism, of course, but there's also a tradition of humaneness, of thinking about everyone under this aegis. I mean, that's why I love that it's the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture.
Right.
It's thinking not just about African American, not just of African, but the African diaspora as well. And you know, we love having you as part of our you know, dreams.
Let me ask you this before I let you go. Brown Poems. It's a book that encompasses so much, and it's beautiful storytelling. It speaks to Brown, not from the inside, but from all sides, I feel.
Sure.
Someone reads this book, they read the poems. What is the one thing you wish they would take away from this? What is the story you want to tell?
I think it's a story about America and about history, and how history is both personal and public. And for me, we're swimming in it. You know,
Right.
It's like we're fish. We don't know we're wet. But how do we think about history, maybe in an active way? For me, looking back at growing up in Kansas and having Linda Brown there, it meant a lot to realize that I was in a place that Langston Hughes also had lived, and you know, coming from a place unlikely like Kansas.
Right.
But it was filled with blackness and brownness.
Oh, it's a fantastic book. Thank you so much
sir.
for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Brown is available now. Kevin Young, everybody.